Capital Mag presents
Hey y'all, it's Shealyn Monet. We are back at the headquarters of Kapital Magazine for the On the Come Up podcast. We are now at episode 3, if you could believe it. Today our guest is Stephen X. Can't wait for you to see the show that we have in store. Stay tuned.
And now with music.
another long day. Time to get home to the crib. Make something to eat, relax, check out the game or something. Send in files, read emails. Time to relax. First, I need to find something to rock to on the way home, man. Let's see what we got here. No Spotify, no Pandora. Let's see what else is out here, man. What's this? Next Up Radio. Okay, let me check this out. Listen. Okay. Oh, okay. Word. Oh, this is hot. Yeah. Next Up Radio.
And without further ado, Stephen X.
I'm on the set. New Hitman Hunter. Yeah, shit, I want respect. Don't gotta give me a check. I could just do this for less. Using my therapy, nothing else worry me when I'm just throwing away all the stress. Don't need an entourage, my aura, my ensemble. Afro thunder with my mantra. I'm so ready to rumble the game on chess. Not no checkers, call me Stephen X Fisher. I took my first steps off the ground, causing earthquakes and fissures. Natural disaster, the way I'm caught up in the rapture. So we'll need a baker with timeless moments that I capture. Yeah, this ain't for the clout, we get respect out here. That's brick by brick. This ain't for the clout, we get respect out here. Brick by brick. This ain't for the clout, we get respect out here. That's brick by brick. This ain't for the clout, we get respect out here. Brick by brick. The mastermind, masturbate just to manifest. Your main dame is in love with my intellect. You think we crossing roads, but we don't really intersect. I'm resting in the place with guys that you ain't even into yet. Vibration higher than the toy meant for the clitoris. If music was a drug, then my vocals are the stimulant. The fortune for my team certainly is imminent. While I show a right to kill precision with the penmanship. Talent here is limitless. Greatness you are witnessing. Jeffrey Bezos with the pesos when I say I'm about my business, man. Damn, they don't understand. I think they simping fan. Now let me spell it out again. This ain't for the clout, we get respect out here. That's brick by brick. This ain't for the clout, we get respect out here. Brick by brick. This ain't for the clout, we get respect out here. That's brick by brick. This ain't for the clout, we get respect out here. Brick by brick. You wanna know what's funny? Ain't none of y'all really been eating. Talk that shit. I just ain't been sitting at the table. Been plotting, been scheming. Same for the clout. Why? Same for the bread. Why? Cause I'm on respect. Don't gotta give me a check. I can just do this for less. Using my therapy, nothing else worry me when I'm just throwing away all the stress. I'm on respect. Don't gotta give me a check. I can just do this for less. Using my therapy, nothing else worry me when I'm just throwing away all the stress. I'm on respect. Don't gotta give me a check. I can just do this for less. Using my therapy, nothing else worry me when I'm just throwing away all the stress. It's too easy for me. It's too easy for me. It's too easy for me. This ain't for the clout, we get respect out here. That's brick by brick. This ain't for the clout, we get respect out here. Brick by brick. This ain't for the clout, we get respect out here. That's brick by brick. This ain't for the clout, we get respect out here. Brick by brick.
right, so Stephen X, we just heard an amazing performance by you. Very dope, so appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I want to start off by asking, how did you get the name Stephen X?
It's as simple as what you wouldn't think it is. There's people think that there's some type of depth or complexity to it. It's literally just my name.
Oh, okay.
My first name is Stephen. My middle name is Xavier. Using it as Stephen X is funny enough, being the kid of the digital age.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I first got on the Facebook, I didn't want to have my last name out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird to have that mindset, because if people want to find out who you are, they're going to find out who you are. But in high school, I thought I was doing this whole mysterious shit, and I just used Stephen X instead of my last name. So it just stuck with me as I started to perform once I got to college, because I started performing in undergrad just as a recreational thing. But a lot of people on campus, when I was on campus, would just know me as Stephen X from adding me on Facebook. So when I started going to performances, I started out as an open mic spoken word artist. Then it transitioned into music a little bit later, but from the very beginning, it was easy enough for me to do it because it's like you see it on a lineup. It sounds cool enough and it look different enough where it's subtle, but it's still one of those things where it catches your attention, and the first thing that you're going to automatically ask is, who is Stephen X? And a lot of times when I first have my first encounters with people, they'll mention that that's something that happens for them as far as their first impression of me on the artistic side.
Yeah, it's really funny that you say that, because I did assume maybe Stephen was your first name, but you think Stephen X, and it's wow, that kind of has a story to it, or some reason why the X is in there. So I was curious about that. So that's cool.
It's kind of like a double entendre in a sense, where it's just on a artist's name is very symbolic, and it should represent something, but the duality of my name just being Stephen X is what you see is what you get. And the other thing is the content of my music is centered around self-awareness and self-empowerment, and I don't want that to be attached to any other name other than my own, because it's important for me just in terms of how I carry myself as a person as well.
Yeah.
So
that makes a lot of sense. So it does seem, if your name's Stephen X, you're very into your roots with that. So where are you from, if you don't mind me asking?
Born and raised in Northeast DC. So I've been in and out of the area because of performing. I went to school in North Carolina and went to Southern State University for a good piece of time. Shout out to my Rand family. Came home, went to Montgomery College for a hot second, and then artistry just started calling me into wanting to be more involved with that full time. So I started to pursue creativity in this area, but I'm from this area, DC.
Okay. And so you're from this area, and I do see on your jean jacket you got some two lovely people right there. So if you don't mind me asking, who's that, and do you carry your family close to you?
So these are both of my grandparents on my father's side. This is my grandfather Cornelio, and this is my grandmother Betty Lou. Both of them are transitioned at this time. My grandmother, my grandmother passed 2021, and this is where they had the pins at the memorial service. But family for me is super important, because unlike a lot of other artists, and you don't cast any aspersions or indictments on people for why they get into this. A lot of what I do is centered around making sure that I and my family, and family has a lot of different terms outside of just blood relatives, but me and my peoples are okay. So for me, this is always a representation, and this is just a small representation of it, of just how I like to keep the roots and the lineage close. Because when I start to peel back the layers of it, and I think about other folks who are in my family members, I have a handful of people who are artistically inclined, but I'm kind of in a rare demographic in that sense. But even with that being the case, there's a lot of very charismatic and dynamic energy that comes from both my mother and my father's side. And when I started to think about who those individuals were, and then started to think about how that affects me as an individual, it's one of the reasons why, again, I try to keep a certain level of simplicity when it comes to my name being out there in a certain capacity, because I understand that it is an extension and a reflection of my kinfolks. You know what I'm saying? So
I really do love that.
yes, indeed.
So how did you get started in your career? I know you said, you know, where you went to college and you were doing the college party type situation. So how did your career kind of develop in that sense?
It started as me going to open mics looking for an outlet in the middle of dealing with a lot of just personal growth and having to manage myself through a lot of adversity. I had lost my cousin to a motorcycle accident in 2010. And it's been about 13 years since I started to perform and do things, but it started as just a form of therapy. It's very cathartic for me.
Yeah.
And then it allowed me a safe space to figure out how to express myself, but also connect with other people. And I just essentially, it started with me doing, like I said, I was doing a cappella spoken word more in the beginning, but I had a lot of friends when I was in college who were involved in music. They heard my voice, heard how my cadence was kind of rooted within like hip hop roots, because that's what I just grew up with. Had a lot of influences with that. Outside of that, in addition to like soul music and R&B and soul, like funk and stuff. But for me, it started out just kind of like as like a recreational thing, but then the deeper I got into it and the more that I helped other folks with their productions, I started to perform in different places in North Carolina initially, and then I came home, and then I started getting busy here. When I started performing here, that's when I realized that I had a very unique ability to connect with people through my storytelling. And it was also one of those things that, you know, people my age, people younger than me, people older than me, it was a lot of diversity in the people that would approach me and tell me that what I did in terms of just being transparent, being really vulnerable and honest with like my expression, it gave them the courage to do the same thing. And once I realized that, I saw that really take effect, I would say like maybe like within the first 2 years. And it took me a while to fully believe in it, in terms of like not being detracted by any sort of obstacles or any sort of like doubt that other people who I would share that information with would try to like deter me from, because it's like people don't really see you as capable of doing it, maybe based off of something that they knew you from previously. But when I had that affirmation being given to me, that's what allowed me to really feel planted and saying, this is where I want to be.
That's amazing. So do you think that you made that type of impact on people because of growing up in similar environments within the DMV, or because of yourself as a whole, or maybe a little bit of both? Like, how would you kind of...
It's a bit of both, because I'm a unique product of my environment, where it's like, even though I'm from the DC area, the DMV area, a lot of times when I share with people that I'm from this area, they don't really peg me as what is considered the typical individual from this area. But that's also because my parents and my family did their diligence and placed me in different spaces when I was growing up, as far as like my education and my upbringing. So it's like, I'm an inner city kid, but because I went to private schools for like my middle school and my high school years, a lot of like my willingness to diversify how I say certain things and how I do certain things came from that space initially. And then once I got into a space where people were starting to reach out for me to make my own music, I started to infuse a lot of those influences that I had from those times. And like I said, just my passion for being a historian and a fan of the hip hop culture in general. So it was a lot of different things that contributed to it, but I would definitely say me being from this area, but also just being comfortable with being myself more than wanting to fit in with the crowd. Not as like a contrarian, but just as like, I never really care for doing things if it doesn't really fit right with something that I got going on the inside.
Most definitely. And I feel very similarly in that too, where, you know, you're just like trying to stand out from the crowd and do your own thing and all that. So would you mind telling me a little bit about what your platform is with Spit Your Truth TV?
Wow.
I was doing some research on you and I saw that you have this that you had added to your platform, and if you wouldn't mind telling the viewers a little bit about that, going a little bit more in depth, because I think it's really cool. So
that's actually that's like my little baby that don't nobody really know about. I don't got no kids, but as far as like investing like a sense of paternal energy, some nurturing energy into something, that's essentially my brainchild. So Spit Your Truth TV is basically an amalgamation, if you will, the manifestation of my wanting this to create a space for other artists similar to the one that I had when I first started.
okay.
So it's a performance series that I started. I had 3 installations that I did earlier this year in February, March, and April, where with the network of artists that I've accumulated from me performing and doing a lot of other things as a freelance production specialist, I was able to create showcase spaces in different venues in an area where it was like 3 artist setups based off of a certain style of thematic expression for the artists. So for the first month, it was kind of like the introductory thing where it was like my in-house team, where there's a lot of multi-talented individuals that we had, where it was myself, one of my other guys, Nomad Mal, who's a really talented recording artist, has some different distribution things that he's working on right now with Rock Nation and some other people. My other guy, Hitman Hunter, who is like my ace as far as like teaming up for a lot of the music production stuff that I've done. So respect. If you heard the tag at the beginning, that's him.
Okay.
So
That's awesome.
shout out to my guys. That was the first month, kind of as like an introduction to the community of who would be responsible for like really supporting, empowering the movement. The second month being in March, we had a Women's History Month special where it was an all women's lineup, and it was different artists that I knew from the area. Shout out to See Me See You, shout out to Dijon, shout out to Zwati Carroll. Just allowing them to be at the forefront, because a lot of times the women don't get a fair shot without being objectified or being ridiculed to some extent. And I wanted to create a space where it's about the principle of freedom of expression and your quality of it.
Yeah.
So that was in March, and then in April, I was approached by another artist that I knew named King Harvey. Shout out to my guy from the DC area as well, where we wanted to do like, it was the theme for it was called Church in the Wild. So with that, we wanted to try to create a space where MCs who are more adept in the storytelling aspect of stuff, because like there's different styles of MCing to me, and I think that there's a space for all of them to exist. Biggest thing that I think people get messed up with is trying to lump them all together sometimes, and you have to be able to understand which spaces, which things are appropriate for which space. More about us tapping in on that storytelling aspect of the struggles that we as like Black people specifically be facing, and how we also turn that struggle and that pain into something beautiful with the music. So that's where like I did those 3. I took a step back in the middle of the year, firstly because I realized it's a lot of work, but at the same time, I just realized that I have the ability to do something really great with it if I take my time in doing more research on who to collaborate with and understanding more of how to be better placed in picking out who I want for different events. But Spit Your Truth TV essentially is, like I said, a performance series where it allows other people to come together, tell their stories, and also bringing together a sense of community that I think it's present in this area, but I want to continue to improve on the perception that comes from this area, where people feel like the community in this area isn't as strong as it could be.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where we're looking to be a part of that side of it.
That's so cool. And because I know that a lot of your brand is focused around the idea of the culture and what you can do for it. So the fact that you're able to put these artists on and bring it to light is really an incredible thing. And even before we started the interview, we were talking about how, for the viewers that don't know, in DC we have Art All Night, and how you are very active in the Art All Night scene as well, and just putting yourself and your presence out there for the community is a really positive thing, especially for young Black and brown girls and boys, you know?
The thing we gotta realize, and sometimes I take for granted the fact that instead of being the young person coming into that influence where you're kind of at the center of it because of like how time progresses, I'm now actually at that point at 31 years old. I really, sometimes I need to maybe run into somebody like Jamal behind the camera to realize that I've actually been doing this stuff for a really long time, and I have a lot of experiences that I could utilize in helping to contribute to the movement continuing in a positive way. Because, and I'm sure you understand this as well, being somebody who's like a part of the culture as well, we get a bad rep for a lot of the things that go on within the community without people realizing the sense of connectivity and the sense of like fellowship that actually comes from this being something that's more of a positive for us.
Exactly.
And if we lean into it appropriately, and this is not to sound like super cliche or anything, but it's something that still needs to be said and understood. Like if we lean into it appropriately, we have the capability of having it be understood and embraced more as a positive thing versus something that's detrimental to us.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I mean, that's why we do things like this, where, you know, we're putting each other on, we're helping each other out, and we're showing what it means to join forces as Black individuals and show how powerful our culture and who we are as beings is. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So what do you have, or what do you see for yourself moving forward? What does the future look like for you? The short-term future, what are you working on, or what do you hope to come from what you're doing now? What do you see for yourself? What is the upcoming things for Steven X?
That's a question that I ask myself often, but I find the answer constantly changing as I learn new things. As of right now, this 2023 was a great year for me because I found myself on stages that I wasn't previously able to perform on, so a lot of Live Nation venues in the area. I've been fortunate enough to perform at the Fillmore, Union Stage, Songbird Music House.
And for people that don't know that are watching, the Fillmore is one of our venues down in Silver Spring. A lot of artists come and perform there. It's probably the next to Capital One Arena. It's like the Fillmore or the Anthem. So those are our other two big venues down here. So the Fillmore is a huge venue.
Yeah, like I said, I was really fortunate to have the ability to perform in those spaces and also release my music consistently on streaming platforms for the first time. And as a, like, the thing I wanted to understand more for myself was how to properly pace myself as an independent artist. So to answer your question, what it looks like for Steven X in the coming years is a continued release of my content, a better understanding of how to empower those things that I release as like assets for myself in terms of using that as different things to allow me to perform in other areas like greater areas like festival performances and things of that nature. But then also in between doing stuff like that, continuing to work with Spit Your Truth TV. And honestly, if that was to be something that took a different form as far as being a more consistent avenue of like fulfillment for me in terms of creative thing, I wouldn't be opposed to just leaning into that more full time.
Yeah.
But the one thing I don't do at this point is try to definitively define what the next thing looks like, because then in a moment's notice, especially in this industry, there are a lot of different opportunities that will pop up at a moment's notice.
100%.
And you want to make yourself as flexible as possible to be able to collaborate and partner up with as many different platforms as possible, so that way you never lose any real sense of like presence or impact within the community or within the culture. And I think that's the most important thing that artists have to be mindful of. Understanding it's not just about being in the front and on the microphone. Like what you do behind the scenes and how you build those relationships behind the scenes is going to go a long way in your sticking power. So I focus on doing a lot more to have that sticking power be definitive by the performances and also continuing to work with Spit Your Truth TV.
Wow, 100. Yes, I love that. So thank you for being such a vibrant soul to have on the show today. I appreciate it. And before we close out, can you just tell the audience where they could find you? I mean, you said you're on streaming, if you have social medias, because I'm sure they want to keep up with you and who you are.
Well, firstly, thank y'all for having me. This is kind of like a homecoming for me in a sense because I put a lot of time into being a part of the Kapital Brand over the years. So firstly, thank y'all for having me. If y'all want to continue to stay in touch with me and what I do, I am Stephen X with an underscore. That's on the Instagram, that's on the Twitter, that's on the Threads. If you are looking for me on any of the streaming platforms, you simply just type in Stephen X. If you want to be a little more specific, type in some of the singles. That way you can get straight to it. Undefeated, Respect, Championships. There's a couple of more, but those are the top 3. And I appreciate you guys, like I said, for allowing me to come out here and do my thing.
100%. And so if you like the song that you heard in the beginning of the episode, you enjoyed the interview with Stephen X, please make sure to check him out on streaming. Please make sure to check him out on Instagram. And we will see you back for the next episode of On the Come Up.
Yeah.